Thank you. Yeah, so I'm here today to take a step back and kind of like a big step back and kind of bring our focus to more coast-wide and talk about the Pacific Marine and Estuarine Partnership. It's a national fish habitat partnership. There's a little more than a dozen around the country. Some of you may be familiar with the California Fish Passage Forum. It's another national fish habitat partnership. So the Pacific Marine and Estuarine Partnership was launched about 2012 from the local area. Myself and Vicki Fry from CDF&W, she's here. Those that remember her, were kind of some of the founding members of the organization. It spans, the U.S. West Coast from the Canadian border down to the Mexico border. And you can read our vision there, but basically we hope to restore naturally functioning estuaries along the West Coast. The partnership itself receives about $350,000 a year to do on-the-ground restoration, and we all know how far that goes, especially given that our scope is the entire West Coast. So early on, we realized, what are we going to do with this small pot of money? So we realized we could leverage that funding and draw on resources from partner agencies, nonprofits to do some focused assessments to help guide and prioritize the small pot of money that we get to maximize kind of the benefit of that. So on our website, which I don't know if the last slide had it. No, so I'll get to we have a website. And some example of some of our more recent projects that we funded. We currently have a project we funded up in the Smith River Estuary. We've funded a project in the Toll River Estuary. We funded a small piece of the Salt River Restoration Project. So, and we're currently funding another eelgrass restoration project on Catalina Island. We've funded one previously. It was a great success. Eelgrass had been extirpated from a bay. The Bay Foundation went in and restored it. Great success. We're funding another project. So, but these tend to be smaller, projects. So back to kind of the assessment thing. So starting in the lower right corner is sort of back in time, and the upper left is more recent in time. But we quickly realized we needed a good inventory, a GIS exercise of the entire West Coast. So we worked with the Nature Conservancy to kind of digitize data and stitch together a bunch of different data sets. And then we conduct a state of the knowledge. So we tackled first estuaries as a role of nursery grounds for fishes. So we did a state of the knowledge report, followed by an assessment of what are the threats and stressors, data gaps, that sort of thing, which helped guide us for the next few years and how we focused our efforts. We followed that up with a state of the knowledge of eelgrass report, again, followed by this eelgrass restoration synthesis report. So kind of looking at what worked, what hasn't worked, and providing recommendations and sort of a guidebook for how you move forward and what worked and what hasn't. We've also created data sets of restored areas, and then some historical mapping of what we've lost at kind of the coast-wide scale. So this is kind of a bit bigger picture than just the Humboldt Bay. These are two of our more recent publications. We just last year came out with a state of the knowledge for the nearshore marine environment. There's a lot less data available there, but there is a lot more data becoming available. So that report lays out a lot more data gaps and knowledge gaps that is going to drive our next phase of the program. So in our eelgrass assessment, we did look at some completed restoration projects, and we've mapped those. I'm going to kind of run through this quick so I know we're short on time. We looked at different methods. These are some examples of some of the products that we've developed. And ultimately resulting in recommendations for restoration practitioners. So we feel like that with that small amount of money, we do fund some on-the-ground projects, but we've been able to leverage that funding to come up with some best practices and recommendations that the community can learn from. And as you can see from this graph, no, I'm just joking. You wouldn't be able to get anything from that. Again, here's our website, pacificfishhabitat.org. It's the landing page, and then you can get some more information on this eelgrass restoration synthesis. There's some great stuff in there. A lot of stuff is applicable to Humboldt Bay. On our website, there's a data section. You can go in there. We have two main data projects. We have an estuary viewer and an estuary explorer. They have slightly different interfaces and the types of data that are in these two different systems. But there is a ton of stuff in there. Our group occasionally puts on workshops on how to navigate these data systems, and they're usually well attended and get, although it doesn't cost anything, but they're sold out, like limited number of seats. But if you go to our website, you can kind of stay on top of that. We've got a number of different layers that are kind of like products, analyses that we've done, and it's kind of value added to this coast-wide GIS stuff. Some cool stuff there. So a lot of the data that's stored in there uses the CMEX data standard. And I forget what the acronym stands for, but it's basically like coastal marine, estuary, something or other. But it's a way of kind of grouping like habitat types and biologic and non-biologic data into a system that is uniform across the thing. So we're talking about the same objects or things or critters coast-wide. It's a way of just organizing data. So our data that's in our data system uses the CMEX standards. Oh, coastal marine ecological classification standard. There we go. Yeah, so you can briefly peruse that. I'm going to move on. So it is just a couple of screenshots of some data that you won't really be able to see what, and it's just because I can't see what it is, but it's basically a tool for, mapping tool to summarize. And you can like zoom into a certain area and turn on a bunch of different layers, and then you can export that data. So you can go into an area of interest and pull out data that could be useful for you in an easy format. If you're having a hard time with that, we do have a data steward whose contact is on each of these pages that you can reach out to, and they can get you the data that you need. I mentioned that we have these different biotic layers and habitat layers in our system. The data is being used. So NOAA has used our data set for U.S. West Coast groundfish. So I'm going to transition into our outreach phase and how, so I mentioned we have a data tools training. We've been doing some conferences and workshops and symposia. Our most recent one that we've stood up is called Promoting Effective Estuary Restoration, or PEER project. And this is ongoing multi-year forum for estuary restoration practitioners to get together and talk about a bunch of different things that are appropriate to the audience. We just held one last month, our first one. I think there was close to 400 people that attended. Recommend that check it out, because was super helpful, and it was a great way to kind of talk about what the issues are and sort of help direct the future of estuary restoration, building off of the past and all the experts. So we did a few years ago, we conducted the Barriers to Tidal Connectivity workshop that resulted in a data hub site. So there's a bunch of information there that really goes into, tide gates and levees and the issues associated with them, and what structures work, what don't, how do we adjust for sea level rise and passage of not just fish, but other organisms as well. Hub site, you can get in and scroll around. There's a whole bunch of, we have a listing of like all the culverts, all the tide gates, levees and dikes and railways. And so roads. So there's a ton of mapping heavy data portal there. So with that, there's a list of a bunch of different websites. Joan Drinkman is our coordinator of the partnership. She's awesome, really approachable and quick to respond. And then my contact information down below. I'm here locally and happy to answer any questions.